Welcome to the Lincoln Parish Museum and Historical Society's Sounds Like Edison with Lawrence Gibbs and Museum Director Rick Godley. Each episode, Lawrence Gibbs will choose a song from the Lincoln Parish Museum's Edison collection of records, share some historical facts and information, as well as play each record on the original 1912 Edison Phonograph in the parlor of the Lincoln Parish Museum. Now sit back and enjoy the sounds from our time machine, a 1912 Edison A-250 Model Phonograph. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rick Godley. This is episode 7 of Sounds Like Edison, and we have a treat for you today. On today's episode, we have Lawrence Gibbs. Also, we have Billy Green with us today. We're going to find out a little this, a little that, especially about the time machine that we've been focusing on, the 1912 Thomas Edison that was upstairs here at the Kid Davis House, which is now the Lincoln Parish Museum and Historical Society. We have the YouTube page, which you're watching on right now. We thank you for doing that. If you would be so kind to subscribe for future episodes that we put out. Then also pass this amongst your friends. Help us grow in awareness as we begin our second Renaissance here at the Lincoln Parish Museum, 609 North Vienna in Ruston. And Lawrence, you and I, we thought we discovered this treasure upstairs back in June. But Billy, you had this treasure a long time, and Lawrence has a lot of questions. So Billy, if you would be so kind. Give us your early recollection of where the Thomas Edison machine came from and how did it get here?
Okay, in my childhood, I was born in 1944, so in my childhood it was always upstairs. And I was telling you, I'm not certain if they actually got delivery of it while they were still living in Ansley, which was where the mill was, the sawmill. And then they moved to Ruston in 1920, or whether they got it here. And when you were talking about the age of it, they probably got it delivered to Ansley and then brought it here.
Wow.
But it was always upstairs because that was, by that time, that was where they had dances upstairs. And I was telling you that they had bags they put over the chandeliers because when they would get to doing the Charleston upstairs, it would shake the crystals off the chandeliers and the bags would catch them.
And there's quite a few
Charleston. I heard you say that
in there
in one of the programs that you did have a lot of Charleston records. So they did. I think they did dance. So
they enjoyed themselves.
I think they very much had a good time in this house.
Well, for the sake of the audience that's watching this, and Lawrence, you can go into details on this. This is a 1912 Thomas Edison. Is it an A-250?
Yes.
Model? No electricity, so every time that Billy talks and tells a story about the ballroom upstairs here at the Lincoln Parish Museum, plenty of space, and I'm sure it was very crowded, but this machine prevailed and put out sound.
Plenty of volume, and these are discs that today we will be doing is not a loud one. It is a beautiful ballad, so we'll get into that later, but it never had to worry about filling the room with sound. It had plenty of sound. It's one of the best things about this. And the sound was loud, but it was also very clear and rich and of a higher quality. Edison was exactly right. His way of making it recorded is different than the Victor and the Columbias and all that other during the day. Eventually they won out, but Edison was on the right track. As far as technically, the quality, you can hear the quality difference in the Edison discs, though you can't hardly find them anymore.
So, Billy, this Edison, you say or think arrived in North Louisiana in 1920 in Ansley?
Well, no, they moved from Ansley in 1920.
Okay.
So I don't know whether the delivery of the original was made to Ansley.
I got you.
When you explained how they delivered it, it sounds like they would have bought it before they came here.
Sure.
And then brought it from
supposedly
Ansley.
Big trucks. They would be loaded up on big trucks.
Well, I just want the audience, because sometimes, we're talking about a machine that's 1912 that is now 110 years old,
12 years old.
112 years old.
Something like that.
We're going to listen to a record that was made 111 years ago. on this edition of Sounds Like Edison. So it wasn't shipped via Amazon, is what I'm getting at.
Exactly.
Just to give people perspective of historical timelines.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
they did ship things by train, but that would have
Right.
had to be shipped to Ruston. But just part of the history of the Davis family, they came from Arkansas in 1901 when the Rock Island Railroad was built south from Arkansas, and basically packed the mill up on the train and moved it to 10 miles south of Ruston, and you basically moved the town.
Right.
Because those were mill towns, and the people that worked for the mill came with them, and they moved it and rebuilt the mill. So, but the corporation was founded in 1901, and they lived in Ansley until 1920, when they moved and had a house there in Ansley, where the mill was. So that question I can't answer as to whether it was delivered, but it sounds like you were saying they were mostly sold around 1912, and so it's very likely they got it.
That's when I think, 1913 was when they were, I think, actively out there, and probably 1914 when they were delivered into homes, maybe.
So that would have been Ansley still, which is perfectly feasible that they would have moved it up here when they came here.
Now,
but I guess for the sake of the audience also is like there's no interstates. You know, and so the trains, yes, there were no airplanes at this time. So trains was the main way of transportation for a machine such as this to get to here in North Louisiana. I guess manufacturing, was this in Menlo Park, New Jersey?
Yeah, at the Edison Company factory.
So from Jersey to Louisiana in 19...
all over
12 or 13 or 14.
Or 13 or 14, right?
And of course, the 167 now goes to Ansley. That time you didn't. You went down the Riser Road to Vernon, and then came back to Ansley. So you didn't. And then, of course, when the railroad came, that moved the road, because that railroad went by where the mill was.
Man, I missed that era.
So
I think I would have enjoyed the railroad.
All right, so why don't we get into Mother McCree and talk a little bit about this one, and you take it away.
Well, I would like to know why Billy enjoys that and what that recording means to him.
I heard you recording when you did the Ave Maria, which I remember very well. But in talking about it, was the only holiday song, and I said, well, one of my holidays we always celebrated was St. Patrick's Day.
Absolutely,
and I always made sure, no matter who was there, that we all stood around the Victrola and sang Mother McCree and played this record. So you told me earlier, it looks like it's been played a good bit, and it probably was, because that was one of my ones that I always played.
But it's been taken very good care of, yes.
And that made me feel good, too, that we didn't tear anything up.
No, wow.
You did good. And you're not saying you're going to perform karaoke with no, okay.
I promise you I won't.
All right.
There's not been a whole lot of
You want to run it?
Well, no. Give us a little background on it. Do what you do so well.
All right. Well, for those that watch these videos, they're about the details, of course. So this is Edison Diamond Disc 80293R. That's the A side. And this is one of the rare things that Edison allowed. This was one of the few times he allowed only one take of a piece. This man recorded this in one take, and Edison was so impressed that he says, it's done. Didn't even allow him to do it 2 or 3 times.
Wow.
So that's important. It originally was done on a cylinder in 1915. And then it was so popular, they realized they needed to get it where it could be pressed out. And so that's where the diamond disc comes in. This is the first pressing of the diamond disc. There were, I think, 2 more after this before he stopped business in 1929. But the singer's name is Walter Van Brunt, who was a famous tenor singer during that time in New York. The orchestra were just whoever was in the studio and could play an instrument, I think. Edison never really cared if anybody knew who was playing or not. He had not understood what that is. So thank goodness he at least gave us the name of the singer.
Okay.
So anyway, this song was written in 1910, and it was an American Irish song. because the man that wrote it was Ernest Ball, who wrote When Irish Eyes Are Smiling, and many others. But he was born in America, and the lyrics were by Rita Johnson Young and Chauncey Alcott. Now, Chauncey Alcott was one of the, he would travel around and perform and sing. He was a singer and a pianist, and he helped, he was the first person that sang this song, because in the original, it was written for a play, a stage play, and this was the only song in the play. And it's about a son's love for his mother and how much she had done for him and all of that. So the words are, I kiss the dear fingers so toil-worn for me. Oh, God bless you and keep you, Mother McCree. And that is what sold the song. So, everybody in the world gave me chill bumps. The thing is, McCree means to the Irish people, my heart. And that's something I did not know. And so it became a huge success. And of course, it was originally released on Diamond Disc April of 1917. So that's where this particular, that's probably the age. Now, the great Irish tenor John McCormick, who was legendary Irish tenor, had recorded this about the same time for Victor. And for it actually got out there a little bit before this one did. But as far as Edison was as far as he was concerned, this was the most perfect recording of this song to him. And so it's really kind of amazing. Some things to listen to, the orchestra. And the orchestra was violin, cello, clarinets and flutes, muted trombone, harp, and orchestra bells. Harp, of all things. And you hear that in this recording. It's a very simple first and second verse form. That means there's a little introduction to get everybody in the key, you know, and then the first verse, and then the introduction is played again as a interlude between the verses, and then second verse is done. And then he does a neat little thing at the end of this thing. He takes an octave jump up, and at the end of a recording, when you've done all of that thing, if you botch that up, you've just ruined that first take. His was flawless.
Oh,
just absolutely.
This is the only one they.
And I think it was so astounded. It so astounded Edison. Now, Edison was not. He was not deaf. He was just hard of hearing. He had scarlet fever. There's 3 or 4 different pages of stories about how he lost his hearing. He lost a good bit of it, but he could still hear. He had something he had invented that he could hear every little nuance. And when he heard that falsetto go up there to that tenor, it sold it for him. So they were done for that day. But anyway, that I must say, it is an impressive recording to listen to. It also was, this song was featured in a movie called Mother McCree, which was a silent movie in 1928, which was about the time they went to talkies. And this song was featured, and they had a new process called movie tone, which was a way that they could get a recorded disc synced up to that movie, and it would, when it was time to sing, all of a sudden it was not a silent movie anymore. It was real life, and so it became very famous. Kate Smith recorded it. Dennis Day, who was one of those famous Irish tenors, and in the '60s, John Gary, who was, you don't hear from him. I'm sure he's probably no longer with us, but he was a great tenor. And I think even a baritone later. And so it was one of those things where the piece is highly regarded, and even to this day. So it hasn't lost its popularity.
All right, so let's hear.
We'll see. We can get her to work here.
Gonna get it going. Sounds Like Edison, Episode 7 Special Edition with Billy Green, Lawrence Gibbs. I'm Rick Godley. Thank you so much for watching. Again, like the YouTube channel, and if you would be so kind to share it. Mother McCree, Episode 7. Sounds Like Edison.
There we go. Give it an extra crank here. Takes a little while. Here we go.
depth in me soul never sounded or known. There's a place in me memory, me life that you feel. Never can take it, no one ever will show. I love the dear silver that shines in your hair, and the glow that falls sorrow, and wrinkled with care. I kiss the dear fingers so toil won for me. Oh, God bless you and keep you. Every sorrow care in the dear days gone by was made bright by the light of the smile in your eyes. Like a candle that sets in a window at night, your fond love has cheered me and guided me right through. I love the dear silver that shines in your hair, and the glow that falls sorrow, and wrinkled with care. I kiss the dear fingers so toil worn for me. Oh, God bless you and keep you.
A one take. Mother McCree. Well, Billy, how long has it been since you heard that song?
Probably the early 80s.
Early 80s.
Since it's been back in this house since then, so.
Well, it's awesome.
But it's amazing, as I said, it got played a lot. And so they were well made because they still sound just as good as it ever did. So.
It is kind of amazing to me that they were able to get all those instruments balanced, and from the technical side of it, to get all those instruments and his voice with just cones. I mean, there were no microphones. He was doing this the old-fashioned way, you know. And I'm amazed how well it turns out and how true to life it sounds. And so
The thing for me, Lawrence, Walter Van Brunt. I would
maybe Brunt
could be German or German origin, sounding Irish.
Right.
Am I wrong in that? Because as you mentioned, he's not John McCormick, which
Right. Yeah.
would be.
And this guy was, I'm sure, totally American, though, as far as we can tell. Now, I don't have a lot of information on him, but he was just one of the many, I guess, artists that Edison had found people that he was drawn to, and he used this guy, hundreds of times during his recordings. So there's a lot of his stuff out there. Well, we've got 2 or 3 more in the collection with his.
But it amazed me some when you say that most of these were done in one take. I know what about was a max of 3 they could do, as you said.
Yeah, 3.
But that this one was the first take, and he said.
And he said,
and
done.
you think nowadays when they make something, they probably take hundreds of them. And this
Elvis
was
did
done
hundreds
in
of takes.
So this is one take, and it's perfect. And here it is, still playing.
Right.
100 and something years later.
But there are many in this collection. I'll have to get your opinion of some that I've found that I wonder about. So
Well,
that
I told
you
you
might have the story on some of them.
They did use Charleston upstairs.
Right.
So, and you said there's several Charlestons, so that makes sense because that was the era of my mother's
Right.
childhood in the
So-
20s. So they would have.
They had a great time. I can tell you, just knowing the records are in here. There are some that are beautiful, just like this one, But then also there was they enjoyed the up tempo,
They
and
liked to dance.
the amazing thing was Edison could care less about the up tempo stuff. All he loved was the beautiful. That's what he thought it was all. The music was supposed to be beautiful, tug your heart, And then, but his son Charles was the one that realized that. We'll never compete with these other labels if we don't accept this new music. In that
But
time,
the younger set more
exactly,
of the
the Charleston was the younger set then, and so I was surprised. There's a Fletcher Henderson orchestra when it was early before the swing era, what he was popular with, actually did 2 or 3 of these numbers that were almost like Dixieland music. And they look like they've been played, so we'll do some of them too.
We'll get around to it. Sounds like Edison from the Lincoln Parish Museum in the parlor here, Lincoln Parish Museum and Historical Society. If you would be so kind, friend us up and follow on Facebook, as well as subscribe to the YouTube. Before we sign off, Billy, do you have any closing thoughts, closing words?
No, I just want to thank y'all so much because this is like seeing it brand new.
It's amazing.
You're so well that everything survived. All the parts are still there, and it's just kind of amazing that it's here. It is back in its original home.
I
still
refer
playing.
to it as a time machine, and it's still
It is very much
still going.
Well, when I walked up those stairs back in June of last year, I looked at that thing and I went, "Is that a Victrola?" And I opened it up, and it says Edison.
Thank you for watching the Lincoln Parish Museum and Historical Society's Sounds Like Edison with Lawrence Gibbs and Museum Director Rick Godley. Keep in mind, we're a nonprofit organization and we welcome your ideas, suggestions, as well as financial support to sustain our efforts to create a remarkable future as we embark on our second renaissance. Our address is 609 North Vienna Street, Ruston, Louisiana, 71270. Kindly follow us on Facebook to keep connected for future events, exhibits, and educational opportunities about Lincoln Parish. Sounds Like Edison is a Godly Works production.